Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Live from NCS. This is Casey Albin. I am so delighted to talk today about the incredible offerings from the conference. Today is Thursday, August 17th, and so we're going to highlight just a couple of the sessions that we found were really exciting and discuss a couple of the pearls that some of the presenters shared and that I think will be really exciting and hopefully make you excited to tune in to on demand if you were not able to attend this session in person. So to start off, I think just highlighting that our keynote address was given today by Dr. Mona Kumar from Penn and Dr. Kara Melmed from NYU, looking at the importance of healthcare disparities in our neurocritical care population. And this is such important work as we as a field seek to better understand how socioeconomic, racial, and ethnic diversity are linked to disparities that really impact recovery and even mortality. I thought Dr. Kumar's talk was really interesting as it explored the impact of the current political and social factors on patient autonomy. And it was particularly looking at marginalized and minority populations in neurocritical care and how the consequences of this compromised patient autonomy can impact really important outcomes like brain death termination and organ transplantation. And I think, she really emphasized how organ transplant also are going to minoritized communities. And it's really important that we consider patient autonomy when we're navigating this, really complicated, and can be emotionally fraught aspect of kind of one of the core components that we're doing at the bedside. And then Dr. Melmed reviews their retrospective analysis of zip code as a marker of social determinants of health and how this impacts mortality after ICH. And I don't think their findings come really as a surprise, showing that, if you live in a lower socioeconomic zip code, that your mortality is higher. But I think it was really important to highlight that we have hard data showing that now and how important it is, given that we invest so much in the acute care of these patients, that we really need to invest in their longitudinal care as well to make sure that those, the benefit of all that acute care translates into longitudinal outcomes. Another of the sessions that we wanted to highlight today is the care of the cardiac patient. This is a constant source of consult stress for neurointensivists as we're called to help prognosticate and to investigate brain recovery for patients who are suffering from a cardiovascular illness. So Drs. Ryan Craner, Dr. Kara Melmed, and Dr. Sun-Nin Cho discussed the mechanical support and neuromonitoring in these patients. And I was able to talk with Dr. Cho, who, really gave me some pearls. That this ECMO-associated brain injury is common. And in fact, a nice pearl about it is that it doubles and triples the mortality in both VA and VV ECMO patients. And there's likely a causal relationship between ECMO and acute brain injury. They discuss in this session how early detection of acute brain injury is really critical. And we really need to take a standardized approach to having a monitoring protocol with really comprehensive neurocritical care to improve the neurologic outcomes of these patients. And I think one of the really interesting and one of the things that's coming down the pipeline is how MRI can be used to substantially improve our ability to diagnose acute brain injury. And so obviously these patients can't be transported. Many of them have devices that are not safe and MRI compatible. But how the Safe MRI ECMO study is really moving the needle with point of care MRI that can be done for these patients. And so that really is one of the future applications of neuroprognostication in these patients. Another important session today was the guideline updates and late breaking science, which covered some of the topics of delirium and rapid EEG seizure assessment and going through the SAFER trial. We also looked at various dual antiplatelet therapy strategies for neuroendovascular stents. Then my colleague, Dr. Salia Farouk, will review the role of ketamine in status epilepticus as a separate podcast from the Live from NCS series. So I'm going to skip that and talk about this really exciting concurrent session, which was the road to the future in assessing the unresponsive patient. This was led by Dr. Alcarom, Dr. Clausen and Dr. Muschliegel, who talk about how early prognostication is often inaccurate and how functional recovery is more likely if the unresponsive patient has minimal clinical signs of interaction with the environment. But figuring that out is actually really quite difficult in today's neuroassessments. And so an important pearl that they give in this session is that up to 1 in every 5 behaviorally unresponsive patients has evidence of preserved consciousness when tested with motor paradigms utilized in functional MRI or EEG paradigms. And they really talk about this state being the state of covert consciousness. And so this session goes through the current state of detecting covert consciousness, discusses proposed mechanisms that underlie this state, and then provides some insight into how using eye tracking and EEG, we're going to be able in the future to better understand which of our patients are likely to make a recovery. And I think one of the things that is hard about this is that given that these are sort of novel prognostication tools and that we are going to have to learn their application, we're going to be learning that alongside the families. And how do we talk to families about this so that they can integrate this novel information into their decision-making that best gives the chance for their loved one to really meet a standard that is acceptable to the patient. And, how do we use shared decision-making in some of these novel situations? And then finally, I think one of the more interesting sessions this afternoon was this critical conversations, doing 360 feedback in the ICU. And so Shweta Goswami of the University of Florida, gave a really insightful presentation about what it means to be a trainee in a team dynamic situation like a neurocritical care team. And so she's really gone into sort of the science of learning how to be a member of a highly functioning team. And that's really important because as a neurocritical care trainee, you're not just becoming a neurointensivist, you're training to become the leader of a multidisciplinary team. And so she gives a sort of broad overview of some of the really behavioral, like science-based tenets of a high-performing team, such as leadership style and establishing psychological safety and using emotional intelligence. And how do you establish mutual accountability in the care of these patients? Because we are all caring for a neurocritical care patient as a team, and each member of that team has to really contribute so that the patient gets the best outcome. So I thought that was a really exciting session as well. There are many, many more sessions that we obviously could not highlight all in today's Live from NCS podcast, but I do hope that you'll check out the schedule. And I hope that if you missed some of these exciting sessions that we've featured here, that you'll be able to catch them on demand. All right, until tomorrow. Thanks, guys.